Winter is the time when most people really start to feel their heating costs. And it's also when smart home automations can make the biggest difference. Today I want to talk about heat management in a smart home. We look at how smart radiator valves, temperature sensors, and a bit of logic can actually improve your comfort while reducing energy waste. And the important part, this approach applies whether you're using Home Assistant, Homey, HomeKit, or pretty much any smart home platform out there. And even though we're focusing on heating, the same logic applies in the summer too, helping you avoid overcooling spaces and wasting energy. Hey everyone, welcome back to Smart Life. In today's episode, our goal is simple: manage heating correctly and save money during the winter. Before we go any further, I want to clear up something that often causes confusion. When people hear smart thermostat, they usually imagine a wall-mounted thermostat that controls the whole house, which is wrong. But in many homes, especially apartments, what we're actually using are smart radiator valves. These devices replace the manual valve on each radiator and control heat per room, not the entire heating system. Each radiator valve decides how much heat to let in based on the temperature readings and logic. This setup gives you much more control, different temperatures per room, heating only when it's needed, and a better comfort with less wasted energy. And no matter which platform you use, Home Assistant, Homey, HomeKit, the core idea is always the same. Measure the real temperature in the room, decide what you want, and control the radiator accordingly. To make all of this work properly, there are a few must-have components. And before we talk about smart valves or sensors, we need to start with the heating system itself. First, you need some way to turn the heating on and off. This is usually done by a main thermostat or a relay connected to your boiler or heating system. Its job is simple: heating on when the heat is needed, heating off when it's not. Without this part, radiator valves alone can't do magic. They can only limit heat, not generate it. Once the heating system can be controlled, we move to room level control. That's where smart radiator valves come in. They control how much heat each room gets, and finally, to make smart decisions, we need accurate temperature readings. Because the temperature measured at the radiator, it's usually not the real room temperature. That's why external temperature sensors are so important, especially in larger rooms or rooms with poor airflow. And on top of this sits the logic: when to heat, how much to heat, and which rooms actually need it. In my setup, the Sonoff radiator valves, also called TRVs, cannot natively use an external temperature sensor. They rely on their internal temperature reading. That doesn't make them bad devices. It simply means you need additional logic on top. The problem is that the internal temperature sensor of a radiator valve is placed very close to the radiator, so it measures heat from the radiator itself, not the actual temperature of the room. Because of that, the valve often thinks the room is warm enough, even the rest of the room is still cold. To solve this, I use Better Thermostat in Home Assistant. Better Thermostat creates a virtual thermostat that combines the radiator valve and the external room temperature sensor. So when I set a temperature target, the system uses the external sensor, not the unreliable internal TRV sensor. The virtual thermostat becomes the decision maker, and the Sonoff valves simply follow its commands. After showing the virtual thermostat approach, let me show you an alternative. This is the Aqara E1 radiator valve. What makes this Aqara E1 different than the Sonoff TRV is that it can directly use an external temperature sensor. No virtual thermostat required. Inside the Aqara app, you simply link the radiator valve to an external temperature sensor placed in the room. Once that's done, the valve stops relying on its internal sensor. It reacts only to the external room temperature, and it controls the radiator based on real comfort. There's no need for a virtual thermostat. No additional configuration. The valve itself handles the temperature target, the sensor input, and radiator control. Then you can bring the E1 in Home Assistant through the HomeKit integration. From setup point of view, this is much simpler. So if you're thinking of upgrading to smart radiator valves, make sure the one you choose includes this feature. It will make automating your heating much easier. In my setup, I don't heat the whole house the same way all the time. At night, priorities change. I only actively heat 2 bedrooms. The rest of the house is set to lower temperature thresholds. That way, bedrooms stay comfortable through the night, other rooms don't fully cool down, and the system doesn't waste energy heating unused space. One important thing I don't do is completely turn heating off at night. Letting rooms cool down too much might sound efficient, but in reality it often causes longer reheating times, higher energy spikes in the morning, and more stress on the heating system. By keeping lower thresholds instead of turning heating off completely, the house stays thermally stable. That's usually more efficient, and trying to recover from a cold house every morning is difficult. Now let's move to my automation that controls my entire heating. I named it Heat Manager. It handles both day and night logic, and it uses external temperature sensors. You'll notice that the automation has quite a few triggers, and that's intentional. It runs when temperature crosses certain thresholds, day or night mode changes, every few minutes, and when Home Assistant restarts. The goal is not instant reaction, but to constantly reevaluate the system. This makes the automation, let's say, self-healing. You'll also notice that there are no conditions here. That's on purpose. This automation isn't a one-thing action. It's enforcing the heating state of the house. Whenever it runs, it checks what should be happening and corrects things if needed. Once it's triggered by the main thermostat, the first thing the automation does is loop through all radiator valves and push temperature targets to them. Those targets depend on whether it's day or night mode. The valves don't control the boiler. They don't decide when heating starts. They only receive target temperatures. This block also runs when day or night mode changes, on system startup, and periodically. So even if a valve loses state or Home Assistant restarts, the system fixes itself. Only after the radiator valves are set correctly, the automation decides what to do with the heating system itself. It looks at one reference temperature, which changes depending on day or night mode. And it uses hysteresis, so the heating doesn't constantly turn on and off. You might notice that the hysteresis values are quite high, and that's intentional. I'm using a pellet heating system, and pellet boilers don't like frequent on-off cycling. They work best with longer, more stable heating cycles. If you're using gas, heat pumps, or electric heating, your optimal hysteresis will probably be smaller, so don't copy these values. Adapt them to your heating system. You don't need this exact automation really. What matters is the idea behind it. One brain, sensor-aware decision, radiator valves that follow your instructions. So to sum this all up, smart heat management is not about buying one magic device. It's about measuring temperature in the right place, choosing the right level of logic, and changing priorities based on how you actually live. You can do this with virtual thermostats, native external sensors, or mix of both. Home Assistant, Homey, HomeKit, the platform matter less than the logic. If you found this useful, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments how do you make your heating system smarter. And remember, smart heating isn't about copying setups, it's about understanding the logic behind them. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.